Hello, welcome back to VOK for a quick little session here on Netflix's new show that just released, I don't know, what was it, 3 or 4 weeks ago now, called Altered Carbon. This new kind of like cyberpunk neo-noir thing that just dropped. Had a little bit of buzz beforehand, but most of the media I saw was kind of after it came out. My name is Adam. I'm also known as Drowned Snow on the podcast of Ice and Fire Forums. And today I am joined by Hannah.
Hey, it's Shadow Baby on the forums.
And Matt.
Hey, it's Blue Armor on the forums.
And Marie.
Hi guys, it's Naimiri on the forums.
And we may be getting some mystery guests later on. Who knows? We'll find out. Okay, so this show is based off of a book by Richard Morgan. I guess it's a series of a couple of books that Netflix optioned for a TV show. It stars Joel Kinnaman as the main character, or the main character's body, I guess. We'll get into that. And a whole slew of other actors that you've probably seen in things that you've enjoyed. It has a rich cast, and I think a fairly high budget, something like $7 or $8 million per episode they put into this, which is pretty substantial considering.
Oh, so that's why they
TV
canceled Sense8. Got it. Great trade-off, by the way. Thanks, Netflix.
Very different shows, Hannah. Okay, so yeah, the year is 2030 or 2384, and people no longer are chained to their physical bodies. They have these things called stacks, which slot right into the vertebrae in the back of the neck, and it contains, I guess, what you would call the soul. All their memories and kind of who they are. And they swap between these sleeves, which is just physical bodies of some sort, and they can transfer across the galaxy that way, or just transfer into different bodies of their choosing. If they're rich enough, if they die, they don't die unless their stack has been destroyed. So that's kind of the world we come into, where people are living for quite a long time if they want, as long as they don't live too dangerously, I suppose. So what did you guys think, just overall impressions? How'd you like this season?
So I really enjoyed the beginning. I was really, really into it. As with many other shows, I started because you, Adam, posted the CTA on the forum. So I was like, yeah, okay. But yeah, I was really into it at first. I guess I'm a bit disappointed with the end of the season. I just really didn't like Ray's character, and I didn't find her interesting either as a person or for the story, actually. But I really loved the cast. I really loved how everything was done. It was really beautiful. Really, there was a very specific atmosphere to this. It's a good show. I don't think it's I don't think it's exceptional. Like, it doesn't really it doesn't really raise a lot of questions and issues about. I mean, it does about the idea that you would live forever, but it does not go too far into it. So, great entertainment, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it does seem to it skirts a lot of the primary issues, because maybe it doesn't want to spend too much time boring the audience with, a philosophical debate, which I get. There's never too long between the nudity and the action in this show, which is both good and bad, depending on how you look at it.
Depends on what you're looking for when you watch this, I guess.
You hear people saying like, "Oh, this is the next Game of Thrones." Oh, they say that about like half the shows nowadays.
Oh my!
But I mean, sci-fi.
I don't know if that's
Game
such a good bar to set for yourself anymore.
Yeah. And I don't think that it breaks a ton of new ground, just like the story in general, once we get to the end, and we'll say, spoilers for the whole season here. but once we get to the end and it's kind of revealed, it comes back. You're like, oh, it's supposed to be a surprise, but it's kind of something you would expect.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, are you kidding?
What?
I just found it so predictable.
Yeah, just like, oh, okay, so she's evil, and then they're just selling people for money and weird. I mean, it took it to like a whole new level of creepy. Not the world wasn't already really creepy to start with. So I mean, I think one thing that does do effectively is show you how, I guess, like life is devalued around like that scene where what is it, Ortega's investigating and she comes across all of her clones, and the one by one they come alive and she's just like killing them. It's like, holy crap. Yeah, it's a weird concept. The thing for me, like, I don't know, because they have I guess the whole thing was they found like an ancient alien technology or something that allowed them to do all this, but they I don't know, if you're transferring yourself onto like a USB drive basically. And I'm like, I guess I can kind of accept that I'm in the USB drive. But then once you had the guy who like twinned himself, and then you're like, okay, that's where like my head just spins around. It's like, then there's two of you, and then I guess neither of you is real. What's going on? Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's the whole point. Is like, with the like the Catholics and the people that don't want to be spun up again. Is, what is the soul and the afterlife and all that. They briefly touch on that, but they don't really go into it very much.
I agree with you, Mary. I don't think this is true, but it felt like in the first 4 or 5 episodes, they didn't really know where they were going. And then after that, there's kind of like a tipping point where they start really shoving everything in this Ray direction. And I liked it before, when it felt like they didn't have quite as an event horizon that they were heading toward.
When
and
it
I
just
don't
felt
think
like they
that
were sort of exploring the world.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
that worked for every show, but like, yeah, and then like they didn't know how the crime would be solved. Just like stuff like that. It's probably not true. They probably knew the whole time, but it felt that way. And it worked better for me. And then everything started to be either really by the numbers or really square peg in a round hole to fit it in. And I everything with Ray was just so like, why? We get
like,
it.
Hey,
she's bad.
Stop being horrible already.
Yeah, like I don't see why we needed 3 episodes of that, 3 whole episodes of her trying to manipulate him and justifying it and him not going along. Like, come on. I could have like not had episodes 8 and 9 and been fine with it. I also found it extremely predictable, like as soon as her character is introduced. But things I really liked about it, really, really amazing fight choreography that we haven't seen in a long time, I don't think, from Hollywood. There weren't a lot of scenes that were overly jump cutting away. They actually had some really amazing stunt work. It's one reason I would definitely go back and rewatch this season. It's one thing I'm excited to see in season 2. I hope they stick with it, if not double down on it, because I love really amazing fight choreography, and everyone is just phoning it in lately. I mean, even a certain major movie that came out recently that had a certain Red Room fight scene that everyone praises, I just felt like, yeah, it could have been good, and then they started jump cutting away.
Oh goodness,
so,
we're not gonna go there.
but kudos to these people for actually putting the time in to make some really amazing stunt work, in my opinion. And I would love to see more of that. And I love the Johnny Mnemonic feel to it, because I love that movie. And I felt like on a lot of levels it had similar themes and tones and style. that I enjoyed. And R.I.P. to Poe, my homeboy.
Maybe he was backed up somewhere.
I'm hoping. Yeah, if bring anyone back, I hope it's him.
So I will say, like, one thing they said is, like, don't expect to see Joel Kinnaman again next season, right? Because I mean, his story is sort of resolved for his body, I guess, because he gives the body. I mean,
Riker and Ortega could make an appearance again, maybe not next season,
right.
They're not off the table, certainly. My buddy,
the fight choreography and the amount that they spent on it and the time that. I mean, I don't know. You're right. A lot of people don't spend the time on that these days, because it is just cheaper to shoot stuff kind of where you don't see anything going on and it's over in 10 seconds. There was another show, Into the Badlands, that I watched that I mostly just watched because like they had a lot of great like martial arts choreography in it, and even though the show was kind of so-so, but I rewatched the first episode right before this, and you don't realize it because the first episode I'm watching. And I'm like, what? I'm just trying to figure out what's going on in this whole world. It's very disorienting. It's so far into the future. I'm not connected to anything. And watching it again, like I see like all of these references. I'm like, all this stuff that comes up later in the season is laid out. And you're like, oh, okay. So I mean, the seeds were there. Obviously, they had them in mind, but you have no idea what any of this stuff is because it's so casually mentioned.
Yeah, it just felt like Act 1 and Act 2 had very different pacing. And I don't know, but
yeah,
I was gonna say my buddy that turned me on to this show. He calls me at like midnight one night, and he's like, "Oh, dude, you gotta fucking watch this show. It totally fucked me up. Like, it's amazing. Get on it." And I was like, "All right, cool." And then I saw your CTA, so I was like, "Okay, I'll do it."
Forcing people to watch mediocre sci-fi since
I call him when I finish, and I'm like, yeah, I finished. And he's like, yeah, what'd you think? And I was like, yeah, it's okay. Like, wasn't the greatest thing I've ever seen, but I'd be into season 2. And he's like, what are you talking about? This was fucking amazing. Like, you have no idea. And I was like, okay.
There's a group of people online that are just like, oh my gosh, this is the best show of the last 10 years or whatever. I think it's great for a number of reasons, but I think that it also fails heavily in a couple of key points, unfortunately. But I binged the whole thing in like a day and a half, I think. So it kept me going. It kept me wanting to see more. It kept me interested, and I mean that right there is a key factor for any show. But what did you think, Matt?
Overall I really enjoyed it. And I would say, it was really good in terms of kind of their ambition and their production design. It's just that the execution, fell flat a little bit, a few times. I've kind of heard the criticisms for Rey's character. I didn't mind her as much, but that's just because I'm biased towards the actress who I've seen in previous things. But the characters like Poe and Ortega were real standouts. I really enjoyed them. The comparisons to kind of Game of Thrones are getting a little ridiculous these days. But in this case, I think it's apt in one particular aspect where they're kind of going for a high concept sci-fi.
I do, yeah. I mean, because this is more about how the people at the top are living, right? That's what a lot of this is about.
Right, yeah, but in this case, so it's going for like a high concept, and I think this is where it falters, where they're similar to later seasons of Game of Thrones, where they're dumbing it down a little bit, and they're writing it rather simply in order to attract a larger audience. And so in that case, they don't dive deep enough into
it's like they pull on
topics.
Some very interesting, conceptual threads, and then just sort of say, "Oh, well, we don't want to go any further with that," and leave them.
Right, exactly.
Which is unfortunate, but I can understand a little bit, especially for like the first season of something like this, where Netflix just need you to binge it. They need you to be satisfied and pay the subscription price and all that. Yeah. And hopefully, if it keeps going. I don't know what they would do with the season 2 as of yet, but he's looking for his long lost love, in a different body. So they'd have to find another actor for that, I suppose.
Well, I assume they would just use the original.
Maybe, but I mean, he would have to. I mean, they could do that. They would say
At least that's why
he was able to make a clone or something.
Yeah,
that was my buddy's like, how dare you? He's totally coming back. And I was like, no, bro, like he gives the sleeve back to Riker. And my friend was like, no, he doesn't. And I was like, did you even watch this show you're so obsessed with?
And that's the hard part is that, I don't know, because Joel Kinnaman, really, his performance carried, like half the episodes most of the time, right? So, and you would be moving away from the, this, you don't have this murder mystery. You're not really dealing with the same people anymore. So you'd have to really develop a whole new cast, a whole new setting, which I'm sure they can do.
But not really. I mean,
I don't know. I'd rather them keep the character.
Be there as Riker, but Kovacs needs to be in a different sleeve. So then I think they'll be doing like a Doctor Who type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed William Lee, like the original, so I would hope that they would bring him back.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I liked him too.
I actually thought this was really interesting that both, the same character in these two different bodies, you could still see the same person underneath, which was interesting. And I really loved both interpretations, I guess. So I'd be really happy with, the original sleeve.
Well, I mean, we had three different bodies, right?
Right, yeah, but the one guy,
the one was just the one,
just like the killed. Action, like the souped up version.
But I mean, it gives them so much room to play. I think it's a good move to not be afraid to break away from somebody else that's fan friendly.
Yeah, and I feel like it throws you off so much. Like when they first, so I mean, we'll just go like it opens up. And it shows him, in that dive, I guess, in one of his mini sleeves, but the one he is in before he gets, imprisoned. And, it shows him, magically hearing the police coming. I don't know. They never really explained that very well.
Well, it's the envoy stuff.
Yeah. Which we don't really see again so much.
Yeah.
Like that whole seeing through walls thing, which I'm like, oh, but
yeah,
I don't know why that is. But yeah, the whole envoy thing, and that was cool. And then we're right into like opening up a vacuum sealed human bag, and you're like, what the hell is going on? Such a weird show. But so they talk about in the first episode he's opened up, and I mean my impression was that body was like a manufactured body, right? Because they're talking about how it's got the best military upgrade, it's got all this stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, so they like program this body. And it's like, oh, no, these are just people who, like, it's like an ex-soldier or an ex-police officer, and then, like, you steal their bodies because they were, for whatever reason, the body's empty now. I'm like, oh, shit. Like, that's actually, like, really, really dark. But you don't realize that in the first episode. You just assume, at least I did, that they were creating these people in a factory.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a mix of both. I think there are some sort of like Matrix downloads.
Right. Well, they obviously have the synthetics and the cloning, and they do that. But this like straight up just stole this dude's body.
Right.
It was the best option for some reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we probably will see some sort of human farm or something at one point. I mean, that would be an interesting concept to get into. If they keep going and they make it multiple seasons, they have a lot of room to play with. And as much as people might like certain actors, they can avoid mistakes like a show that we all know and love called Game of Thrones, where your stars are too big for it after a few seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And they're over it. And now you're just cutting corners. They can keep switching casts out any old time they want in perpetuity and explore different concepts and people and places in the universe. Well, even if they stuck with the one main character, they wouldn't need the same main actor.
Netflix is similar to HBO in that they have the freedom to release stuff when they want, how they want, take time off. The ratings don't necessarily matter. I mean, I think that they're important. Obviously, if no one watches something, they're not going to spend $100 million on it. But it's not like advertisers dictate, if a show's getting canceled a week later, which is nice. So they can be a bit more experimental. The only thing, though, is Netflix, they always release everything all at once. And sometimes I think that's a benefit, and sometimes it's not.
Well, they tried it with a different show a couple of years ago. They tried doing it weekly.
Well, what they did was, and they do it in other countries too, is what they're doing is they're like basically simulcasting something. So like Netflix in UK or some other countries, sometimes they'll have like an HBO or a Showtime show, and they'll have it like the week it airs here. So that's why it's weekly content, because it's not really their content. Yeah. And they're basically airing it there because no one over there is airing it. They don't do that so much here because everything's on TV somewhere, unless Netflix.
Yeah, but I think Hannah's right.
Yeah, they experimented.
They tried it with one of their own
shows. In Between, and it just wasn't the best show though. But that was their test pilot for doing the weekly releases.
Was that the one where they were like trapped behind with like the kids?
Yeah,
that were, like
some agent is released in town that kills everyone between whatever.
Yeah, see, but that's because it was. I'm pretty sure that one was. I thought that was airing in Canada. Yeah, so they were just picking it up from Canada as it aired. It's the same thing.
But I read an article from like a publication from Netflix saying that they were testing the format out to see if it but it just wasn't successful.
But yeah, that show wasn't good.
Right.
But I tuned in every week. You know what I mean? And I watched
I'm all about it. So I mean nowadays, as far as if you want to talk about viewing habits and the effect Netflix has had, I mean we had that brief window where kind of home DVD was a thing, and people you'd buy the DVDs for your season and watch it, and now it's sort of like a lot of times I'll wait until a show is airing. Like if I'm like I don't really want to follow this every week, I don't have the patience for it, or I'm just busy, and then I know I can put a weekend in and see the whole season. But there are a few shows where I feel like maybe that's not beneficial, where like I'm watching it and it's clearly meant to have some time in between episodes, and then it feels like things run too fast when I watch like 6 episodes in a row.
Well, I don't mind waiting a week, or even with that show, some of them came 2 weeks apart, and I don't mind it. It's just I want to be able to watch it on demand. I can't be in front of a TV at 8 p.m. on a Thursday night. I'm at work.
Right. I think most of us, at least our age group, very few of us watch things as they air. I mean, Game of Thrones and sporting events. There's a couple exceptions where I'll watch something live, but I'll watch it the day after, when it shows up on Hulu or wherever.
I'd also rather wait a year to see something come on Netflix than watch it in that channel's app just to avoid the ads. I would rather pay to not see ads.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how keen you are to see it.
But yeah, it depends on the show.
Yeah, there's been shows where I'm like, ooh, I didn't realize that was back, right? And so I go to watch it, and they have like, it's 10 episodes in, but they only have 5 episodes, on like the CW app or something, and I'm like, well, I'm just waiting,
I'm so spoiled by like the on-demand thing now that I can't stand commercials. Like one comes on, I'm like, make it stop. Like, I'll tell you anything you want to know, just turn that fucking commercial off.
Our attention spans have changed. But I mean, commercials used to be the time you went to the bathroom, or if you were like when I was in school, I was working on a paper or something, it's like, oh, here's the commercial, now I've got 5 minutes where I'm not distracted. Yeah, I don't know. But back to Altered Carbon. Yeah, I think one of the most significant things, and Netflix has been doing a number of kind of experimental things lately, like with the Super Bowl, when they had, what was that terrible movie that they promoted? I can't even remember it now. I regretted watching it.
The new Cloverfield movie.
Yes, the Cloverfield Paradox, where I'm watching the Super Bowl, and they're like, hey, there's a new movie, and it's out at the end of the game. I'm like, what? There wasn't really any buzz or anything, so I think they were extremely successful in creating that buzz and getting people talking about it. And there was all the think pieces and articles, and most of them were like, look how Netflix tricked us into watching a really terrible movie.
Right, exactly.
Well, I mean, think about it, though. Like, that's basically the equivalent of straight-to-video.
Yeah.
It really was.
Equal to something.
They attached it to a franchise that, like, had some interest, and then it sort of got people going. And I don't think they really cared whether it was good or not at that point. They wanted to do this little experimental thing and see how many people would watch and talk. And I don't think it was bad for them. I mean, they might have been like, oh, Netflix tricked us, but I don't really think a lot of people were like, I'm canceling Netflix. I think a lot of people were like, ooh, good job, Netflix. I'll be more careful next time. Well done. Yeah.
So back to Altered Carbon.
Yeah. We'll just cut all this out.
So what do you think's up with those like trees? That was such like an Avatar. I was getting shades of Avatar from those tree things.
I hope not.
He's like knocking around his neck at one point.
None of us have read these books, I'm assuming, right?
Nope. No.
Okay, so anyone listening and you've read the books, sorry. I don't know if that makes us sound like idiots or not.
I could just hear furious YouTube typing right now. These ass clowns don't.
Well, I mean, I feel like I'd heard this name mentioned, Altered Carbon. I feel like I'd heard that before, but I'd not no one's ever said you got to read this or anything. So I don't know. It wasn't really on my radar.
I'd be interested to read it, actually. I have no idea if it's a good book or no. But...
I looked it up today. It seems like it's exactly what the show is. It's one of those it's a more fast-paced novel. It's only like the classic 300 to 400 pages, and and it focuses on the action and the sex just as much as the show did.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
so we
not
can't.
then.
We can blame the author.
Society like that
did win the Philip K. Dick Award in 2003. So
yeah,
way back then. Yeah. Yeah, it's less than 400 pages.
Yeah, and
that'd be a quick read.
I usually avoid those books because they're not deep or that interesting.
Oh,
yeah.
Short. There are some great books that are only a couple hundred pages long.
Oh well, yeah, like classic stuff. Sure, when you get your Fahrenheit, 451 stuff like that. But
I was more talking about Kurt Vonnegut. But yeah, you've got the right idea.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not necessarily. I would not necessarily avoid those kind of books because nice and easy reads are also something I look for. But now that I've seen the show, is if the book doesn't go further into these interesting sci-fi questions of living forever and societal questions about these castes and people being really, really, really rich and stuff like that. If it doesn't go into that, I'm not sure it has anything more to bring than the show already did.
I'd be looking for more. I'd be looking for some answers or for just a more of a perspective. I feel like if what we're getting is sex, drugs, and rock and roll hundreds of years from now, I feel like the show did that pretty effectively. Probably better than the book could have. I mean,
probably
with the visual spectacle. So,
is it just one book or is it a series?
I think there's three.
It's a series, but the second one is 30 years after the first one. So they seem to be more, individual stories with the same character.
Which is kind of cool. I mean, you can do that when you have a world like this.
Yeah.
So from the beginning,
let's make a pact right now. Let's all read them and then come back and go again.
I got other things on my plate.
Nobody got time for that. Yeah. So the Bancroft family I thought was particularly interesting. Just their dysfunction. And initially, when we don't know a lot about this world, but in those first few episodes, when he's giving him this offer, solve my murder and I'll make you rich and you're free, I'm like, oh, he's just gonna put him back in prison, But by the end of it, you realize he was just genuine the whole time.
Yeah, I know. The actor
was actually
really
pretty straight
me.
Shooter.
Yeah, it's because it was James Purefoy where I just expect him to be evil all the time, and so it really tricked me.
Why? He's the good guy in A Knight's Tale.
Oh, is he really? Oh, it's been forever.
Yeah.
That was so long ago, though.
Yeah.
He's,
He's the hero, man.
Yeah,
mainly on that, like Rome and
Rome, and then what was that TV show where he was like this serial murderer?
Yeah, the Edgar Allan Poe, Kevin Bacon thing. Yeah.
Right.
Forgotten, something like that. Forgiven.
The Raven. I don't know. Maybe it was The Raven. Like
no,
who knows?
That's the movie with John Cusack, where he plays like a Edgar Allan Poe solving like murders that were styled after his novels.
Oh, is that like From Hell? Did you ever see that?
Oh God,
did not.
It was From Hell. It was a horrible movie.
You what? You don't like Heather Graham's Cockney accent? Aye, Governor Jack be ripping us. Okay.
Jesus.
I had to do it once. All right. Where was I going with this? Yeah, but I thought the Bancrofts were particularly interesting, and they provided some of the most confusion in the early episodes, and then we get that 0G fight scene, which was great. That is probably one of the major highlights of the season. I don't know how much that cost to do, but that was really awesome.
Yeah.
And just I think like if we're going to talk about social commentary and kind of the deeper message in this show, it does gloss over a lot of it, but I think the main thing is like how cheap life is viewed. I mean, even when I think the police is like, well, they investigate people, that stack killers, right? They investigate people that are truly killed. And then, there's a whole separate division for, I think they call it organic crimes. It's like, oh, well, you killed a body or something. That's sort of like a misdemeanor.
Yeah, sleeve death versus
sleeve death versus stack death. Yeah. Yeah. So,
and they don't call it assault. They call it organic damage.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't talk about how many, like how long the average person has been alive now, or like having kids, if that's something that's common, or if you have a lot. I mean, if you have a bunch of kids, then you're like 500 years old and you got like 1,000 kids. It seems weird. So I assume that there's a lot less people, having kids like they used to, which also brings up what is her name? The daughter.
Elizabeth?
Do you mean the one
the 12th
VR
daughter, or
like? Do you mean Lizzie or?
Yes, Lizzie. That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Yeah. Who? Actually, I mean, I think she got better as the season went on. I didn't think anything was going to happen with her. Yeah. And then towards the end, I mean, she gets kind of weird, but also pretty badass.
Machina toward the end, though.
Yeah,
too.
which is exactly what that was supposed to be. But
yeah. I liked her parents though. I really like the mom character.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was great. What I found really interesting were the scenes like where the grandmother gets brought up into that thug looking dude, with all the tattoos and stuff. And she's like, "Oh, sweetie, let me comfort you."
Oh my God.
I thought the actors that they had when they were in those kind of like cross-gendered roles,
those were great.
Did a great job, and it really and how natural everyone was in the world kind of brought it into focus. That like just the way people view things, the way I mean, they even said it's like sometimes it's like, how do you even know who's inside someone? I don't know. It must just be confusing.
Because like Ortega went from wanting to kill that guy to like bringing him home for Christmas dinner. It's like. And being affectionate
was it death day dinner, or what is it they're doing now?
No, it's like a amalgamation of all the
day.
It's like Halloween, Christmas, everything.
Yeah, I got the impression it was an amalgamation of all that, but centered around Dia de los Muertos, which is a multi-day celebration. But it was just funny how she's physically affectionate now toward this outward, just because of the, like, if that happened to me right now, I don't think, like, if they put my husband into a woman or something, like, I don't think I could be physically affectionate. Or even
just like another man that looks radically different. You'd be like, the disconnect would be so heavy. You'd be like, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Take something.
I mean, obviously, I would probably speak with it and stuff because it would be his personality, but I guess it spoke to how you get conditioned if you grow up in a world like this, which I thought was interesting too. And they didn't need to put a lamp on it and really, explain it. It just came out, and I enjoyed that too.
Yeah, because I think eventually, let's say something like this happened in our setting nowadays. I think eventually you would just go, oh, well, this is my wife or husband or sister, but like you would accept it after a certain amount of time, and once you realized it was real. But it's not something that we're mentally prepared for. So I don't know.
Yeah,
it's definitely weird.
Yeah, and with this, the whole Ortega being kind of falling in love with Kovac, and then he's in her fucking boyfriend's body. How weird is that? I mean, the whole dynamic is just.
She needs like
really,
centuries
really
of counseling after this.
Yeah, like how can she, after that, be with?
But she can do it in a
Riker?
Day.
Yeah, well, true, but I still find like the whole. There's
how she goes back to him. You mean?
Yeah, it's.
Do you think with his body now, with the scars, he's gonna be like, so where'd that one come from? That's new.
God.
He's gonna look down and see this tattoo and be like, "The fuck!" It's like Vegas.
So, what were you saying, Marie?
I'm saying that it's weird the way she she falls for Kovac, and then he gives Riker back his body, and it's all okay. I mean, how confusing must it be in her head? That's all I'm saying. And
she has to explain it to him too, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't appear too much that way in the show. Like it is a bit of an issue. Like you can't really be with him because it's too weird that he's in your boyfriend's body. But it's not too much of an issue either, and I'm not sure that's very realistic, actually.
Well, I think humans, everyone copes differently, and humans have a huge capacity for self-deception and, to make themselves believe what they want to believe. And so part of it is, so let's say she's, she kind of fell for Kovacs in a way, and you could say that's made easier because, she's in Riker's body, or he's in Riker's body. But for her, once it's all over, she can easily justify this to herself, being like, well, it was really just my feelings for Riker the whole time that were propelling that. And it's very easy to, justify that and just,
sure.
not confront the issues. Although maybe, we don't know how long she's been alive. I think the impression was that she was actual age, though, right?
Yeah,
I think her family was.
Yeah, this was her first.
I think there's also a point that those meth, the very rich people, they do, they keep themselves from aging, but not everyone can do that. So I think for most people, you just age like we do now. And if you have the money and the will,
you save up, and then when you die, you can get a new sleeve.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Right. Because it did seem, that is one thing that I wanted to touch on, because it seemed like this miraculous world where you can live forever and all this was like mostly for the rich. Not exclusively, because other people seem to get sleeves fairly easily. But when they when they were releasing all those people from the jail, and what the people got their daughter back, and like a 40-year-old man was like, you just get what was provided to you, and you're like, dude, like
that was dark too.
Not cool.
Yeah.
Here's one thing they never really even tried to begin to touch on. Why it seems like people aren't born with this shit, so they're obviously installing it.
They said when you're like
every
when
fucking
you're 1
baby?
or 2. Yeah, when you're, I think,
so
like
why,
1 or 2 years old.
Why do that to someone and then put religious coding on it? Why don't they just not have them?
I guess because
that's a good point.
So
I don't know.
It's probably like a chip. like it probably serves other purposes. That's just the way they have their social security and all that other stuff that the government tracks.
Oh, maybe
and
you have to
not,
have it.
Also, you're not a convinced Catholic at one, or two.
Right, but your family
Right.
would be. So you'd think your family could say, "No, I'm not doing that." Right? I mean,
Yeah,
in the real world,
they didn't explain
Yeah.
like if it has to be done at a young age, or like they never said you couldn't be retrofitted for it if you chose a different lifestyle. It would seem to me though, Catholics and Christian. I mean, I guess it's more of like maybe a Christian thing, but you're not supposed to do that kind of shit to your body. Like that's a sin, and it's also like
and the concept
the
of
mark
the soul
of the
and
beast.
everything. Yeah, I think a lot of people would not have done it, and a lot of those people would have died off at some point. Through
I mean,
history. We didn't really cover that,
the concept itself that you could do that and actually save all your personality and memories and everything that makes you into data is in and of itself already something very, very debated and I mean it's a given in the show, but it's not. I mean, so obviously when you live in such a world where it's been in a sense proven experimentally that people can be stored up as data, probably there's a shift to in how everyone conceives the idea of the soul, of the difference between mind and body. So I would assume that probably something changes too in the Catholic faith. Like it cannot be exactly the same when you have people walking around being in other bodies than the one they were born in.
Obviously, the church evolves. I mean, like you can get divorced now, but my thing with it too is like, why? How does it work with such a young person? It would have to grow.
That's more of my that's more of my concern. Is
and what's
they
the
say
point
they're doing it at 1 or 2 years old, and your spine hasn't fused yet. Like I mean, we're not supposed to be. These questions are not supposed to hold up. I guess we just assume they have a way of doing it. That's fine, but I would think more likely you would put this in someone that was a bit older.
Like
you got to survive until you're 16 or something, and then they put it in you.
Or like a mitzvah or something, like.
Yeah.
Or you could be like the Bancroft kids, and you're just like, they keep putting them in clone bodies of kids,
That's
never allowed to grow
fucked up too.
That's so messed up.
I know.
That's really, really fucked up. But I guess this whole technology is really presented to us as a given, something that's kind of magical and it just works, and don't really ask how it works, because indeed it doesn't really make. I mean, there's a whole practical questions that are definitely not answered in the show.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that just can't stand up, like Poe and the Raven Hotel. Somehow he hasn't had a guest in 50 years, but the lights are still on. Like, how does this guy keep paying the bills? I don't know. We just have to accept that somehow it works. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That is one thing that toward the end, like spoiler, but when Kovacs looks through the telescope at the end after he quote unquote solves the murder, and then he starts actually putting together what really happened and the whole head in the clouds thing. That's what I thought they were saying, is that him being at that hotel was all a setup too. Like, I thought they were going in that direction for a second. I was like, oh shit, like that'd be crazy.
Well, so I got confused with the hotel owner when he had the shotgun and he's shooting people, but the shotgun it's all just like a hologram, right? In the first day, I'm like, because then he uses the little, Gatling guns coming from the ceiling, and I'm like, oh, okay. So, because he did, for a couple episodes, I was like, he has like a physical robot body, kind of, but then he doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very unclear.
Because when he gets deleted at the end, it looks like there's like a physical body.
It seemed like
wasting
AI
away,
to me either.
right?
Like the definition there was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, nano dust, she said. And I thought that was just figure of speech, and then he's like actually turns into dust.
We found a bunch of wildfire under the city, sir.
Speaking of which, did you guys notice that there's a shot of a church that has the 7-pointed star on it?
I did see that.
And this show shares a director with Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So people thought maybe it was just thrown in there as like a, hey, what's up?
Yeah. I'd be interested in a lot more world building, I guess. Like I'd like to know more about the envoys and this whole, like, how did society come to be what it is during this season. But I'm not sure they have the much material to do that. And it could be well done, and it could also be very, very predictable and really not interesting. But yeah, because and like we mentioned, like at the very beginning, it's like the envoys are this kind of superhero, like they have superpowers. They
right.
Can see through walls and stuff like that. And then it seems like they're just normal people who have had some kind of extensive spiritual training and physical, obviously. And it's really unclear.
It's only him that
what
can
you
do that.
What you think they are is very different from like the very first episode to as it goes on. Like what I thought their abilities were and what I thought the group was and what they did was very different. Like I thought it was like a much larger thing than them just kind of like hanging out in the woods.
Ray makes some comment while they're in the woods before they meet with the envoys that he already had that like intuition thing. So I think that's like a just him thing.
I thought it was some sort of like these were like, militarily developed, they were somehow, in a lab gave them these abilities.
Yeah.
That's what I would have
would
thought.
Be somehow
and then it was too dangerous,
physically.
So they never did it again. Yeah.
Yeah, like they would be physically different, like from other humans, but apparently.
But I guess if the only thing that's the same is their essence, their stack, being transmitted around, I guess it makes sense that the only thing could be is some sort of programming, and whether that's a computer or these, virtual reality sessions they have that kind of trains them.
Yeah, but even that, how does that give you the ability to see the world? Like
I don't know,
the
man.
whole intuition thing, I can get behind, like, because it's also a training in understanding people and being able to kind of almost predict what they're gonna do in a way. And I mean, I can be okay with that, but
right, and getting people on your side and being the chameleon, and
yeah.
But yeah, the whole X-ray vision thing was like, was that an upgrade that Steve had? Like, why does no one else have that installed?
Yeah, see, I got the feeling that it was like there's a couple of like one-off lines, like throwaway lines, where I either got the sense that he always kind of had that and he's like magic somehow, or it's because he's a combination of envoy and the SeaTac guy.
Yeah, probably not. What I think really, Matt, I mean, we're just like, I don't think any of this matters because they just like, they say, hey, accept it as we give it to you, and it's part of the story.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's confusing, but I mean, that's part of where it doesn't hold up. But what really matters is that his sister survived for hundreds of years and has a castle in the sky where people just come and snuff murder people. Like,
okay, but
why?
didn't you know immediately that her story was bullshit?
Yeah, there were a couple points like, in the later episodes where it was weird because they seemed to treat like the reveal that the police were just being paid off by the rich people as like a thing that wasn't well known, whereas I just assumed like from the start that was a given, like, and that was just how things work.
I was super surprised when they're like the Bancrofts are going to jail. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
are we actually doing that?
Right? Yeah,
Can't they just buy their way out?
Yeah, and the fact that they were like, when the whole mystery of the girl, falling from the sky, it's like, well, clearly she fell from up there, and then just the rich people were paying people off.
Well, but I mean, she could have jumped off the bridge, or they thought she was dumped in the bay, right? And then they said, oh well, she fell from the sky, and it's like, well, she fell from a flying car, or who knows?
Right, but like it was clearly like really high up, so it's just like
But the crazy part is that Riker was on to something, and everyone's like, okay, bro, you're crazy. Let's put you in jail because this is weird. No one could possibly be messing around with this religious coding for nefarious means. That's just not possible.
And then Ortega's like so shocked that Tanaka's like doing shady shit, and it's like, you've been doing shady shit this whole fucking time. Like, you don't think maybe your boss had a similar idea somewhere along the line? Like, there's nothing stopping anyone. There are no moral constructs to eternal life.
So it's like the Gotham City Police Department, man. Like, what is it? Like Gordon says, like in Batman Begins or whatever, when like he doesn't want to take the bribe. He's like, I'm no rat, man. He's like, in a town this bent, who would I rat to anyway? Like,
right, yeah.
But one thing I want to say on that matter is that the police, I don't know, because their unit seems kind of like a minor detail that what she's on. She's like the organic crimes or whatever. And then the captain or whatever is, he's on the take, and everything is pretty well orchestrated by crime and rich people. And then I really don't get what was going on with Raylene's manservant, who was like weirdly like thinking she's a god, and then just like brutally murdering people and kept getting away with it. And I don't know what protections he was under if at the end they're coming to arrest her and put the Bancrofts in jail. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what system was he being protected by and operating under? Other than, I mean, he had the little stealth thing where people couldn't see him. But it also seemed like he had all this access, and it was more than just, bribing, police captains, I would have thought. But
yeah, this character is very weird. I have no answer.
Yeah, I was glad to see him gone. But
right, yeah. I mean, it just kind of seemed like they took the consequences and threw him out the window for most things. Yeah. I mean, because I mean, that's like it worked.
Except
it worked
Ortega's
for both
family.
Right, except for Ortega's, but no one was punished for their murders, really. It worked for both sides because, in the middle, he just blows up that building and kills, 50, 100 employees, and just nothing. They're just like, oh, well, that's too bad.
Then we find out, like, accidentally he gets involved with all this stuff that happens to belong to Raylene. You're like, shit, she's just doing everything bad. I don't know why he didn't murder her right away. Like,
that's an issue, right? The big bad of this is Ray, and she's really not interesting. Like, Bancroft was interesting. Like, you mentioned the whole creepy, weird dynamics in his family. That's interesting, but Ray, no. Like, I mean,
the most interesting thing about her is that the reveals and her businesses and all that really just show us the scale of human life and how it's devalued, and like again the whole scene with all of her naked clones coming out and dying one at a time, and
that was really violent.
It was it was just great, and it just shows you like it's just how
great fight
she is. And so I think one thing they didn't explore enough was like she's damaged somehow. She got broken along the way. I mean, she obviously she betrayed them and everything, which kind of adds up, but like something happened to her where it's not just her moral compass is off, but it's like it's completely gone. And is that because
of
how much they've transferred around, or is that because of more human issues like that? Like, what is it?
Yeah, I think that was kind of the point where it's just how two different kids, both of them saw their mother die in front of them. And then they just kind of chose different paths that, led them where, he became a kind of a violent military guy, and she became, a criminal leader.
She's definitely got some like sick obsession with him.
Well, but I felt like, so when he came back, like she was just waiting for him, and she engineered this to get him off ice, right? She said that this whole thing was so they could be together again, and so like, why not just like drop all of your shady businesses, give them to someone else, take your money, and like, hey, let's go somewhere, let's go be rich somewhere and live a happy life. Instead, she wanted to like manipulate him into like becoming part of her organization. Maybe.
Well,
I
for as
wasn't
much
sure the goal
time
there.
as they spent on it, it just wasn't. There were no revelations to me. Like, oh wow, it was so like, I don't know.
It didn't feel like she had a realistic goal with her brother, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
And he never had a realistic response with her. Every time she kept trying to force feed him this, bro sis relationship, he never looks her in the face and go, "Don't you get it? Like, you've already lost me. I'm like done with you now." It just was so weird.
I mean, they present their relationship like something really intense, really deep, really, there's only you and me, but it's not developed enough so that we can actually care when they find each other again, and she's all weird, and I mean,
because they chose to do the reveal instead of setting that up, they chose to like not let us know who she was, right?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, in a sense, I feel like they tried to have both the idea of something very romanticized, the whole revolution that failed, and Takeshi losing his love, and all of that, and then you have her being almost too bad, too bad to be true, and kind of the two things don't really match. And because she also annoyed me when they were with the envoys, and so
the whole time she was never on board with that shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so what was their relationship then? Like, it didn't seem like they were too close then either. Right. So what does that mean?
And he's so dismissive of her and her feelings.
He never suspected her, like,
Yeah, but he's like completely like, she keeps raising concerns and he's like, shut up. And then he's like surprised that years later she's still mad, like.
Yeah, but the weird thing is that there's this whole idea of you and me forever, and because of their childhood, and he changes everything for her. He kills every one of his teammates for her. I mean, I don't know if you can call that a team, but it's like in the moment they find each other, when he's a SeaTac and she's a whatever slave, it's like everything shifts and they fight for each other again, and then they're not as close, and hundreds of years later she tries this. So, but obviously it's like there's no real feelings between them, and at no point in their adult sleeves, I would say, did I feel any affection between the two. So it doesn't really.
It's like that, like it was like a high school relationship that like didn't last long enough, and one of them never let it go. Like they romanticized it for hundreds of years until I don't know. I mean, like their family, obviously, but you would think after that much time she would forget about it or something. I get him having no connection in this world after being gone for 250 years. Really, wanting to reconnect with his sister. It's like the only thing from the past, but she just keeps piling on him.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, if she can have this unhealthy connection to him, she's weird. That's fine, but she never seems to come out. Like, it seems like there would have been a much simpler way to, if she just wanted him in her life, if that's all she was looking for. This was a little elaborate and was designed to push him away, I would think.
It's just weird. And
like then I said, they all need a lot of therapy, like a lot of therapy.
Like, everything with her character was so predictable. Like, I knew it was going to be his sister the second someone like started busting up the fight drome. I knew it was her in Ortega immediately. That was not a shocker.
I don't think that was meant to be like hidden at all.
Yeah.
And then like I knew at some point she tried to say that Cal was still alive. I am a little surprised that she did it in the 11th hour.
That one I didn't see coming.
Oh, I totally saw that coming.
It came so late, so I wasn't sure if I was telling the truth or not.
Yeah, I would assume that too.
She was, or at least like if I were him, I would assume that she was not telling the truth.
Correct.
That's such a Hail Mary. However,
I mean, it ends with him being like, "She's out there somewhere. I'll find her." Like, so I mean, I guess, I guess you know, she's out like, there.
Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, why though would they have kept her around?
With like, and it would be so off books that by this point, maybe everyone who did it is dead and doesn't even remember. I don't know. She was saying that she did it, right? And she was like, you know, she backed her up and hit her and all this stuff. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I guess it could be true, like, case in the whole, like, just in case he doesn't comply, like, I've still got this trump card.
So she can say, well, look, no, I wasn't trying to ruin things. I was just trying to get us out of this situation, and here she's really alive. Yeah, but, like, I mean, I guess.
Way to not pull it off, like, for all this hundreds of years of planning that you have.
But see, okay, so what was her plan with him? What was her plan with her brother when in the past when she betrays them? Because he just gets caught, or well, no, he doesn't get caught. He escapes and then eventually gets caught. But she was alive and never contacted him at that point. I don't understand that.
Yeah, like,
but if he had made it to the plane and was escaping with them, like, I guess she had a plan to back him up then, right? To save them both. Is that the idea?
I don't know.
Because she didn't back herself up, actually. She doesn't remember how they died or what happened.
I mean, you can only back yourself up at some point in time, so she has to do it. I mean, however close she does it to actually dying, she won't remember dying.
Well, no, but then she like, I mean? Does.
Right. Well, but she doesn't remember, like I'm saying, she doesn't remember being on the shuttle, and she was saying she backed up, what's her name, like right before the shuttle blew up, you know? So, I don't know. But my point is that if he was with them on the shuttle, he would just be dead too. So, I mean, I guess she was thinking he would be knocked out long enough that he just wouldn't be found, or I don't know.
It's all very strange.
She's just not good at planning things. Let's be honest.
I mean, I think all of these issues are what we've said from the beginning, that the first few episodes where it's very intriguing because we don't get how this world works, and Kovac is discovering it like we are. And then everything fits neatly into I mean, neatly, that's debatable, but fits into this whole story that is in the end disappointing. Like, the envoys are not a big thing, but they are, but at the same time they aren't. Like, it doesn't seem like they have done much really before they were kind of erased from the whole thing. And there's really something different. Like, something changes around episode 6 or 7, I guess, and then I don't find that all that interesting. Like, all we are talking about with race plans and everything, it's not our conversation that's not interesting. It's that it seems like they didn't even think all of that through, so there's no answer to everything we're asking. Because
and maybe they didn't feel it was the focus. They didn't really feel it needed to be that deep, because I think the strongest point of the show is how immersive it is, and how it, especially those early episodes, brought us right along, and we're confused in this world with the character, and we're trying to figure it out. And the cast was great. I mean, there's a lot of good things to say about this show. I mean, it's far from perfect, but I do think overall it was a worthwhile experience. Like, and I hope season 2 can at least maintain that same level of excitement and quality, and I would hope improve on, you know, whatever the next phase is, whatever the next plot is. Maybe connect those dots a little bit better.
Yeah, totally. I I will totally be into season 2. I just feel like the more we talk about it, the less it makes sense, and the more I'm like, the story wasn't that great.
It's like Westworld.
For sure. Hey now.
It is like Westworld. I
for
found
shit.
Westworld to be, it fell totally flat for me, and it was very, very, very predictable. Which really sucks the adventure out of it.
I love Westworld.
I'm still excited
it's quite
for
the
season
same
2.
thing. Yeah.
I like the idea of Westworld. I did not appreciate the execution. It's just one of those shows where I felt like the trailer was better than the show. That elevator fight scene, though, that was fucking badass.
It was until the bullets ran out. Like, I can't stand those type of silly things. that was like the only like bad part of the action scenes in this show, where
a bit of the plot armor that came through.
Right, yeah, I can't stand plot armor on either side. Like it applies to villains a lot too, where it's just it gets annoying.
All right, so what do we want to do? Some final thoughts. Is there anything you guys want to say? Anything we haven't touched on?
I think maybe it would be worth a rewatch. Just the first few episodes, going back and watching his interactions with like the Cassandra sleeve and the little girl sleeve, now knowing that it's Ray. That might be interesting to rewatch.
Yeah, well, like
that'd be fun.
Just rewatching the first episode, you pick up on some things that you're like, oh, okay. And it's definitely one of those, even if some of the reveals weren't particularly deep, they play with that, especially because no one has to be in, one particular body. So they play a lot with that throughout the season.
I think all I would say is just because we did gloss over some of the better parts where, Poe was a great character, and I think the whole story with the
Poe
Elliots.
lives.
Yeah, I think the whole story with the Elliots was pretty well done as well.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I loved a lot of the characters, actually. Apart from Ray, most of them I enjoyed seeing them. I don't know if they were particularly deep or really well developed, but I actually liked them. So yeah, I was touched by some of them.
The abuela and the skinhead, though, that was my favorite.
Yeah, that was.
She was so cute.
Yeah. Although it was really, I was confused at first because it didn't look like that she killed him straight up with in the and it was weird that she just killed this guy in like the middle of a police station.
It's hard to kill people in this world.
Yeah, but she killed him in the middle of a police station. Everyone was just like, all right, yeah, whatever.
That's the other thing, is there seems to be like where the police are judge and jury.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like we don't ever see any due process going on, so it's weird.
No.
I think it does touch on some good social points, like aristocracy, middle, lower, and then like the lowest class, like him going to that plague camp.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that was weird. Where he just like wastes a body to go go touch the radioactive people so they can have human interaction.
The feral.
It was very much the whole I guess like the extreme of like the whole like the white savior thing. Like he's going out, feeding the poor people, sacrificing his life, but not really,
Mm-hmm.
It was weird, man. That whole dude was weird, but like I said at the end, he ended up being kind of one of the most genuine people.
Yeah.
He just what was going on was what was going on to him most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for beating hookers to death because he can't stand his wife, Other than that, he's a great guy.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say that he was a great guy. I just said he was fairly genuine in
he was
the way he presented himself. Yeah. So, and I think that was a lot of that was the casting. That was a great choice there.
I do like the fashion up there at their house.
Yeah.
What is anyone wearing in this movie? I don't know. for the show. Like,
oh, I know. And then what's up with Max Headroom being the owner of the fight drone? Like
that hair, and then yeah. I enjoyed that little.
I like how they just call it out. She's like, you choose to look like that.
But yeah, at least that is one thing. Is like the fashion styles were a little weird, but most people were, I guess, what we would call as kind of like a normal look. And then the people that were kind of odd, it wasn't like, oh, everyone looks like this weird cyberpunk thing, you know. So, although there were like the people that were like half animal or something that we never really touched on.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't really see a lot of that. I don't know. Oh. People are into some weird shit in this show, so you know.
So here's another thing: was the whole 653 thing just for people with religious coding? Because otherwise, I don't fucking understand that.
It was just for people with religious coding.
The idea was that look, if it's clear that someone's been murdered, we want to be able to have them testify or point out their murderer if they can. Mm-hmm. And those people want to stay dead, but I mean, also we don't want murderers going around. Was the idea?
So we don't have to do any actual police work, basically.
Well, but it also seems like everything's probably monitored everywhere, and you got like even nowadays we have cameras everywhere. I don't know, but I think a big part of that is again that like the organic crime was not really seen as a big deal. It's like if someone dies and they happen to have the religious coding, well then it's really murder because they're just done. Except their family holds on to their stack like instead of an urn. I don't know.
They have cameras in their eyes. Can't they just?
Well, not everyone. He had to put that in his eyes. Like he put that thing in his eye, and it only had like a brief battery, I think. So most people don't walk around with camera eyes.
Are you sure though? To me, it seemed like they had one. Like that's their cell phone.
No, they have.
Yeah, what do they call it?
They do have like a Google Glass, yes.
Yeah, I forget what he calls it, but like sometimes they shut it off and sometimes, but it's it's not
right. But it's not like
Oni. That's Oni, right?
The Oni, yeah.
Oni, yeah.
Yeah, it's a screen they have over their eye.
Yeah, because like in the beginning when he's walking around and like all the ads overwhelm him. So that I think was fairly new to him, especially because he was, working mostly on the fringes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think that was a bit of like the Black Mirror-y,
He's also tripping on LSD and shit at that point. Like, the fuck out.
He said, "Give me one of everything." Is what I think he said.
Yeah, I'd definitely be freaked out also by that.
All right. Yeah, so overall, I think we generally enjoyed it, and maybe when season 2 comes around, we'll meet up again, depending on how that goes. So, does anybody have anything coming out? What's coming up? What's going on, Mandy?
No, just rereads.
Yeah, like the usual rereads.
The usual,
yeah.
Storm of Swords, like Look Back is
retrospective, yeah.
Right, I mean those.
I know that with Nadia, we're thinking about doing a Jessica Jones, because like season 2 it will be out in like 2-3 weeks, something like that.
March 8th.
March 8th. So we were thinking about maybe doing something about season 1 just before the release of the second season, and then also maybe the second. I don't know. Nothing's organized yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be good. I didn't even realize this season 2 was coming so soon.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pressure Greg into doing Man in the High Castle. You've been warned, Greg.
Yeah, I still gotta finish that.
I love that show.
Season 3's coming out.
I watched the first season, and I haven't
April
gotten the second
maybe.
One.
The second one is like better in some ways. Like Farley was saying, he way loved season 2 better.
Yeah, I think it's better across the board.
When he said that, I was like in the middle of it, but I do, like by the end.
All right, I'll watch it. Jeez.
It's a good one. Philip K. Dick, right?
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I love the first season. It's just like every time I think, maybe I should go start on season 2, I'm always like, not right now. So.
And then I know we're going to try to do
gets
some
like
more
that.
Black Mirror episodes.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't listened to the first one yet because I haven't watched that episode yet. I think I've only watched the first 3 episodes of this season. So.
Get on
Yep.
it.
All right. Well, thanks guys for joining me, and look for VOK online on the Podcast Fast and Fire forums, VOKWordpress.com, Twitter, YouTube, all the other various social media apps. It's like 20 years in the future and there's a new one. We're on that one, probably. Although I don't know why you're listening to this. It's a 20-year-old show. Anyway, because no one else talked about it, I guess, probably. All right.
That's weird. What if it's like 100 years from now and we're all dead and someone's listening to this?
I don't know about you, but I'm living forever.
Yep.
All right. Later, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Adam.
What is the purpose of the meths like towers in the sky? Like we just want to be above all the bad weather.
Right, exactly. They don't want to be in the
It's always
grime.
sunny up here.
Down in the
That's
dirt.
a good.
I also feel like those are like
how do they go
dangerous
outside?
buildings.
Yeah. How do they go outside?
The wind doesn't seem very high up there. Yeah,
Oh, well,
the
they could
oxygen is
probably-
low.
They could probably build wind guards. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
They're building giant towers. I liked it. It's a nice. It's like when they first had that shot, I was like, "Ooh, Matrix!" Matrix 3, where
Right.
one of the only cool parts of that movie was when they like went above.
Above the clouds where it was
Yeah, above
shit.
the. Yeah, I know. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. I don't know. You have your own private sex island, like we didn't mention the private sex island.
That's it. All right, let's start over. Welcome to
We forgot that like which
Do the intro again. Do it again.
Which Kovacs? Okay, this is just one last thing. Which Kovacs do you think survived? Private sex island Kovacs or traumatized killing his sister Kovacs?
I think definitely sexy Kovacs, right? Like,
Isn't it a
who's
dress? Like
I think it was.
get asked, and he answers, "I'm the one you said goodbye to." So I'm imagining that's the one who killed Ray.
Yeah, that's the original. Yeah.
oh, that was
Yes.
such a bullshit answer. This is how this conversation went. Listen,
I feel like it's
In their own words,
it's a shame to lose the memories of the sex island. I feel like that's
Probably.
like this is the thing. We both know exactly everything the other one knows, except you killed your sister and I went off and had an orgy with a hot
Yeah.
lady.
it's like
Yeah.
just tell me about it and I won't be traumatized, but I'll know it happened. Like
Yeah.
well, I mean, they flipped a coin or whatever, so I mean, they did rock paper scissors, so it was fair.
Oh, and that's the other thing is like they're like rock paper scissoring and they're doing the same shit. It's like, why don't you just get a coin? Like,
Yeah. Joined by Hannah.
sorry, you had made me mute.
You got to be used to the transition by now. Take it away, Hannah.
Well, you asked me to mute, and then I just figured I'd be last.
I know I tricked you.
Fuck.
Okay.
God, it's too early for this shit.